I hear from so many different people like, oh my goodness, I can't do everything with my partner, right? Like where it's like you're spending time together, you're recording together, you're doing all these things together. It can be fun, but it can also be a little overwhelming and maybe like clash a few times. So how has that been for both of you? And I know you guys have been together for a while, so you guys have worked through your struggles, but sometimes it might still be a little frustrating.
Reason why we started this was because we kind of gelled on this. Our favorite thing was to travel, listen to Bollywood music. It was our bonding factor.
Yeah.
Like for us as couples, we don't, I know very few couples do this, but like we don't get bored whenever we go on vacation. It's just us two. So I think that was huge for us.
Welcome to the Love Atlas. Each episode brings you thought leaders, experts, and everyday amazing people with their unique perspective and profound insights on life, love, relationship, and personal growth. That's what we're all about here. So today I have Simran Chopra. Simran is a really close friend of mine. We've been friends for years, traveled together, and had an awesome time. I wanted to talk a little bit about like influencing, like as an influencer, right? You share a lot of your life online. So how do you find the right balance being connected to your followers and true to your followers, but at the same time keeping a private life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a little hard to navigate when you first start. And then we actually started in around March, and then now is November. So trying to see, still navigating through this actually. We've crossed only like 7K followers today this morning, but
Oh,
still
wow.
very small, I feel. But one thing that I've heard from a lot of big creators, they always say that the community that you build like initially in your initial stages of influencing or creating content, they're going to stick around with you throughout your journey because they're going to see you, your videos, yourself growing through stages. So I think for that you really need to have like a clear mindset. For us personally, we don't like to put a very personal content out there yet. Maybe in future we're more vulnerable in front of our audience or are more comfortable. But for us, it's like we show like a side of personality. And since our page is more travel related, we want it to be more useful for the people. So something that people want to hear from that perspective once we do that. But honestly, it's a struggle because yesterday we were in car and I was talking to Ashan and we literally had got an ice cream and I was like, oh, picture, let's take a picture. Or let's put it on Instagram and then the ice cream's melting. Like things like that. Like it's always in the mind. It's like we have to click a picture, we have to make a video.
Yeah.
And we were walking through the rodeo drive last night, and it was it was strange because everyone else was like looking at the beauty, and I'm here with the camera, like trying to capture it all. Ishan's here with the camera. Oh, this is a good shot. This is a good shot. Things like
Yeah.
that. So I think it's always in the back of our minds. So it's very hard to differentiate, but now it has been like a second nature to us where like we see things and we shoot it and then click, we're like in the real life now.
Even though you guys love that lifestyle of taking pictures and looking a certain way, but you guys never let it affect the people around you. You guys are so quick about taking your screenshots, taking your pictures, and then you guys are like, all right, like now we're done with this and like let's have deep
Yeah.
conversations and let's talk. So I think you guys do really have a awesome balance in place. And that's the reason why I asked, because it could be challenging at times because you obviously have your ups and downs.
Yeah. Initially, it didn't come at first, to be very honest, because we were still learning the skills. Like, we were still learning how to capture a good shot or what exactly are we even putting online. So, I
Mm.
think once we gave it like a lot of realms, first we were creating content only when both of us were there. And then eventually, like more people tried to come in, families and this, that. So, we had to have like a very clear mindset of like what to capture, when to capture, and like
Right.
when to
Yeah.
actually be with people because I'm sure it's like kind of irritating for people too, right? Like always clicking pictures and all.
Sometimes as influencers, we feel pressure, right, to fit into trends, and we tend to compare ourselves to people. So, how do you stay true to yourself in a world where everyone is trying to be perfect?
stuff always comes in mind, especially today when so many people are doing this. So many people are even creating travel couple content, which is such a niche, but
Right.
still so many people out there are doing it. But then obviously we look at their page, the number of followers, that does come in mind. But the thing is, what took them like so many years to get to that level, we can't compare our 3 days to that. So I think just having that kind of mindset of like looking at people as an inspiration, not as a hindrance, that's a huge thing that we always have to keep in mind.
Right. No,
And
that's such a great way of answering it. Yeah. What were you saying?
I was also gonna add, like, there's so many things that I've learned, like niche neighbors, basically people who are doing similar stuff. So, for example, for us, we need to find like more travel couples and support them in their journey too. And
Mm.
like creating a community between the creators rather than a competition.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's great because you learn and feed off ideas from one another. And that has been incredible for me as well. Coming across awesome people and sending them audios and just being vulnerable and asking them questions. And then I get paragraphs and paragraphs of like their journey and like their feedback and like the tips that they want to provide me. And I think it's about listening and really like taking that in and applying it. And it's just a whole another ball game of influencers who are so supportive. Influencing is not easy because it takes a lot of effort for you to be able to show your true colors and be vulnerable, not just with others around you, but with yourself first, and then put yourself out there. So you and your partner, you guys, first of all, inspire so many people, right? I remember we were talking the other day, there's like awesome people who are commenting on your work. And so how has that been for you, having that community and just spreading the awareness and knowing that people are actually watching and listening and responding.
I feel that's the most rewarding thing. Is like people are commenting, they're liking what you're doing. That's very rewarding, and they're most of it they're finding it useful. I feel like for me, for us personally, when people are saving our itineraries or like the asking us question about what place you would recommend, I think that's what makes it more rewarding because then we feel like okay, it is unique. It's helping others as well. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And then let's dive a little bit into relationships now, because again, you and your partner are doing this together. I hear from so many different people like, oh my goodness, I can't do everything with my partner, right? Like where it's like you're spending time together, you're recording together, you're doing all these things together. It can be fun, but it can also be a little overwhelming and maybe like clash a few times. So how has that been for both of you? And I know you guys have been together for a while, so you guys have worked through your struggles, but sometimes it might still be a little frustrating.
yeah, actually, it's been 7, 8 years of knowing each other, and since we've like kind of we met in like early 20s, and actually I was 18 and he was 20. So we met in like very early stages of life where we kind of saw 20s as our growing stages for each other. So like from making our career to like studying, going to grad school, everything. So we saw each other doing that. So I feel like our lifestyle kind of blended in because obviously when you're first at college and then you start working, there's a shift. There's a
Mm-hmm.
shift in personalities. You're more of like you need to learn how to present yourself, etc. So we saw each other grow, and it kind of at the end like it just blended us in terms of like our profession as well. And the reason why we started this was because we kind of gelled on this. Our favorite thing was to travel, listen to Bollywood music. It was our bonding factor. Like for us as couples, we don't, I know very few couples do this, but like we don't get bored whenever we go on vacation. It's just us two. So I think that was huge for us. And we
Yeah.
always find communities wherever we go, like we make friends there. So we've been that kind of couple who's like always out there traveling and then like also enjoying at the moment. So I
Yeah.
think when we started this, it kind of like became more of like a hobby for both. So I would say a combined hobby.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And I think like when you both connect on that level and you know you're excited about it, nothing beats that. And as you mentioned, traveling and not being bored, because that's when you know you're with your best friend where you can just be with each other and you don't really need a third person to
Exactly.
hang out with. I mean, obviously it's nice to like enjoy time with friends as well, but when you know you can just enjoy your each other's company to the fullest, nothing beats that. So that's awesome. And then what about your day to day? Tell us a little bit about, because obviously, um, you know, you guys are working and then you have your Instagram business. And how do you make time for both, right? I obviously you have your stable position and then you have Instagram. So how do you schedule time for Instagram? Do you guys have a routine or is it like very go with the flow, like wherever you are, wherever you decide to go, you're just like, oh, I'm gonna record and then you know, put the content later? How does it work for you guys?
Yeah. Before answering that, I want to go back to what you said of like being best friends. I
Yeah,
think that's what the key is. I feel like if you're best friends with your partner, then everything kind of flows through because you can just be your vulnerable self, share everything, and also have fun. So that's very important in a
of
relationship.
course.
So
Absolutely. Anyone listening, I think like just recognizing that like friendship is so important and it's beautiful to be friends with your partner because then you can share anything and everything with them. So, and
exactly.
the fact that you both have grown together is also awesome because you have so much respect for each other for seeing like, oh my goodness, the old Simran to now, right?
Yeah. So I think when we first started, it was very much like always on camera. So like we were recording way too much and then using less of it and like using only
Right.
specific shots. And now it has certain amount like changed because now we take thoughtful shots instead of like capturing anything and everything. So like having a perspective in our mind before capturing anything. So for example, we recently just went to New York. We made a full itinerary of like what all places we're gonna cover, get an idea of like what kind of short form videos we're gonna make, and if we're making any long form, what is the theme. And then once
Mhm.
we have that in mind, we also write down like what kind of shots we want to take at the location. So like it's very now very precise just only because we end up wasting way too much time capturing too many clips. And Shan does all the editing and producing of the short form and the long form content, and I'm mainly doing a lot of like marketing side of it, and then reaching out to brands and also coordinating with other brands and collaborating with them, and also connecting with niche neighbors. So a lot of like people that we connected on Instagram. So I think with that very specific different two duties, like we kind of found balance in it. So going back to our trip, now that we have that mindset in mind that we're going to capture this, and then whenever we go there, we obviously give ourselves that creative freedom. And like if we see something, we capture it. But it's always, I feel, it's better to be planned beforehand. Otherwise, we personally do feel lost when we're at the location.
Yeah, no, that's such a good way of, I mean, it takes a while to even get to that point because as you mentioned in the beginning, it was just like all these videos that were going to waste versus now you guys have a legit plan. So that is awesome. And I wanted to ask, what has been your big wow moment, right? Like where you're like, oh my goodness, this person reached out to me, or someone who might have collaborated with you guys, like, or you know, you mentioned the marketing aspect of it. So you were reaching out to people and maybe you didn't expect a response and then you ended up getting a response. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, two of them. So one of the big ones at first was Hilton in San Diego. I reached out to them and then they were down for a collaboration and then we created content for them. And now they've been putting a lot of our photos on their page. So it's such a wow moment to like look at those pictures and then uh, oh wow, like we made it to like their gram as well and like their
Right.
social media marketing. So it's actually it's precious and also pure because it's our first times and obviously we're also learning, but it's definitely very precious. And then another one was in Cabo. There's a resort called Mi Cabo. And then we
Mhm.
got like a sponsored trip there and everything. And it was great because we got to experience Cabo in a very different way than we usually do. So that was also huge for us. And then just creating content for the hotel, for their multiple uses, that's also very rewarding. Like it
Yeah.
kind of in like also enhancing our skills and also like giving them something to add value.
I love that. That's really, really awesome. And being able to like, see your work flourish and see the rewards is such a good feeling. So that's I'm so happy for both of you guys to have reached that point and like, you just keep going. Consistency is everything. And that's how you get better at something through doing it over and over again. And you learn through the experiences and come across so many different people. So that's awesome. And
Mhm. Can I
so
add
yeah,
something to
yeah. Go for it. Yeah, yeah.
when you said like those two wow moments were amazing, but I feel as creators we always end up like expecting as well. So like but there are some months that we get 2 or 3 great reach outs and great brands. But then there are months where like we don't really have anything. We're
Right,
being our
right.
creative self. Though
Yeah.
we're like small creators right now, obviously, but then like just accepting it and learning and growing as we grow from here. I think that's very important too, because ever since
Right,
then, I haven't like found like it brand or it hotel, but then
right.
obviously that experience is gonna stay with us and we're gonna work towards it even more.
Totally. Yeah. No, absolutely. There's ups and downs and everything in life. Like if you kept getting like deals every week, then every weekend, then I feel like you just become stagnant, right? Now it's like, okay, I achieved this. So now what else can I do to achieve even more, right? So as humans, we want more and more, but we also have to remind ourselves that, okay, you know what? I achieved a certain point and I need to immerse myself into that, be grateful, and then keep working hard because good things will keep coming. And having
Exactly.
that mindset is important. So obviously, like you, as you mentioned, there are challenges. So life isn't always like a smooth sailing boat, right? When things do get tough, how do you guys maintain that motivation to keep that positive mindset?
So I think obviously in this realm, since it's just two of us, things do get difficult because you're kind of navigating, you're the media powerhouse of like from thinking of the idea till ending of like putting it and then reaching out. So everything in between, you're doing everything between two people. So things do get tough, no doubt. But also, since it's two of us, then we kind of motivate each other. So there are obviously times where Ishan would feel like not creating content because, like, not for his creativity block, or like me not being able to reach to the brands because I'm not hearing anything back. I think
Mhm.
there are people not reaching to me personally, and then so I think things like that kind of hinders, no doubt.
Mhm.
But that's where like a role of a partner also comes in. So if I'm feeling down for that, Ishan does make sure, to make me feel better about it, that it's okay, or focus on content, because that's what the main goal is. Focus on your
Right,
activity.
right.
I think that constant reminder of like focusing on ourselves, not focusing on the expectations around it, is very important.
Yeah. So what about what would you say from your experience with social media, what is one big advice that you would give to someone who is just starting off and they're like, not feeling so great about it and are kind of down? Like what is one big thing?
One thing that really helped me and Ishan as well was when you're starting, your first video would never be the best one, and it shouldn't be. So I
Mm-hmm.
think just keeping that in mind, and then eat and that mindset in every video, that
Right.
video is not the best and it shouldn't be, because you need to grow yourself, you need to enhance your skills, you need to grow your skills first at each point. Even if we have 100,000 followers, we still need to grow. Like
Right.
that should never go away.
What has been a surprising moment for both of you guys, like where you guys are starting to get more followers or you guys are starting to get more reach? Like, was there any particular video, reel, or thing that you changed up on your Instagram, even when it comes to like meta? Any advice that you would have for someone?
So I have couple points here. So I'm doing mostly on marketing side, so I'll have tips on that, I feel. So one of the biggest thing was like Instagram algorithm. Initially when we started, I used to read up a lot on algorithm, what's going on, what's working, is it the comments, is it the saves or sends? So it's changing constantly, that's for sure. So there's nothing that you can control on your end. Earlier it used to be if you get a lot of comments, it's going to reach to more people. Now it's like if you get more saves, then it's going to be like they're promoting more of saves and sends, more
Right.
related content. And I'm sure it's going to change again. So
Mhm.
just being up to date but never getting it to your mind, I think that's what's important. So don't get down to like numbers of the videos. One thing that happened to us, like we put in so much effort in one video and then we were thinking, oh, this is going to do well, we made in so much effort, it's exactly how it should be, but ends up like it doesn't do as well as we expected. But on another video, good example was that Bollywood song. It was such a natural content. We were in car making content of like just us being us, recording and grooving to the Bollywood music that we actually listened to while on road trips.
Yeah.
We just impromptu shooting, and that
Yeah.
video got like 2 million plus views. So I
Yeah.
think, and we didn't even expect it. It was just like a filler content for us, but it did well. So not getting the numbers in your head would be a
Yeah.
great thing to keep in mind. I know it's hard because whenever even I till date open Instagram, I look at like, oh, how many views is it? How many
Right. I mean, that's what's in front of you, right? Because if you're posting something, like the only reward, if you really think about it, is the likes and the views that you're getting and the comments you're getting. And if you don't get any of that, then it's like, wait, what am I doing?
exactly. It's so heartbreaking, right? It's like, oh, I did something wrong for sure. Like what how
Right. It's gonna make you, I mean, even if we can sit here and say, yeah, it's not gonna affect us, it really does sometimes affect us because that's kind of like what the journey that we're on. But we have to be mindful where it's not affecting us so much, where it's like we're causing us
exactly.
depression. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing is like doing everything from heart. I think then you don't get like personally attached because whenever now we go to our page and look at the videos, even if it hasn't done too well, it's creating like a memory box. Like it's
Right.
going back to, oh, we did this on this trip. Oh, we sang this song or like things like
Yeah.
treating
Yeah.
it more as a personal album and like also helpful album for like others to strive on. I think that's something that helped us too.
No, that's great. And I think sometimes I go back to my Instagram too, and I'm like, oh, should I delete these old videos? But then it's like, no, you know what? Like, they're memories. And like, it shows like my growth as well. Like, how much, like, when I just go back to like looking at my old podcast versus like the new ones, like in the beginning, I would be like, oh my goodness, like, I'm embarrassed of how I used to talk or this or that. But now it's like, as you keep going, you learn to like not really care so much and be so dependent on external validation. I think like you eventually realize like you're doing this for a bigger purpose. And I think just knowing that, you just keep going and it just happens. But yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about like friendships. I know you have a wonderful partner and it's great to have that support system and he is your best friend, but it's always important to have your girl time as well. So I wanted to ask a little bit about like how do you find time for your friends and do you guys always do things together or do you guys also do things on your own? How do you guys manage like friendships?
Do both. So like we have like our separate groups and also things that we do together. We have like majority of the time we are hanging out with like friends that are mutual to both of us because that way we can also hang
Of
out. So obviously
course, it's
fun.
nice. Yeah.
But I think it's so important to have your groups outside of it too, like having friends, always. Like for example, having you, since we're in the same field, like doing and navigating through this, I can always come up to you and share my thoughts. Oh my God, I'm feeling drained about it, or you'll understand. So I think like having that and girl bond is definitely different, I'm sure, because we definitely bond different ways than a guy and girl or a guys would. So I
For
think that's very important. But knowing that, it is obviously hard to juggle it because we have our full-time jobs and then also this and then the
right.
travel.
Yeah.
It is hard
Priorities.
still navigating. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it is challenging. And I think as you get older and older with more responsibilities, it gets even more challenging. But I think just really putting in that effort, even if it's like once every few months, it is really good for us. And I think it's like very healing to have that girl to girl time as well, as along with boys having their own boy time as well, because they get to like do what they want to do. And it's like nice to have that. And then what about certain important life lessons you've learned that you really live your life by every day? Like, are there any rituals or things you do on a daily basis that you, if you miss, you know you're not going to be happy?
Mm. You know, one thing that I always used to do, now that we spoke about it, it kind of takes me back in time. I used to always keep a journal. I used to write my thoughts at the end of the day. It was a habit that my mom made me do. So when I was 6 years old, ever since like I had journal, even till date, I have those. I go read back to it. I think that's obviously a great way to let your emotions out or even thoughts out. It gives so much clarity. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm doing it daily, but I would say at least twice a week or so, I'm able to collect my thoughts and write it down. It just gives me so much of clarity. It gives me so much of peace. And I feel when I'm in the moment, I may be more reactive. But this idea of journaling helps me collect everything and then pen it down. And then,
How do you feel about typing versus writing it down?
you know, I have tried typing. I have tried the Notes app. When I'm on the go, it's very useful, no doubt. But to me, like, since it's very habitual, it's something about writing it down that makes me more connected.
I've
Because,
heard that it's better to write it down versus like typing it up. As you mentioned on the go, you can
yeah.
type things up, but there's beauty behind like actually like retaining and understanding that pen to like mind connection.
I'm sure like there must be like a scientific reason to it, right? Because I haven't read much into it, but yes, from experience I can tell like there's a difference for sure.
Yeah, I think you definitely comprehend and under your level of retaining information when you're writing is way more deeper than actually typing it up. I think
Mm,
there is science behind that aspect of it for sure. Because the motion of you writing, and then if you write something over and over again, that's why a lot of people who manifest and who
mhm,
believe in manifestation, they write things down and they always say, don't type it, write it down.
that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Um,
definitely something I want to go back to and then do it more.
yeah.
Another thing was like this is more about mindset, but not having a judgmental mindset, everything having as is, accepting it.
Mm.
Um, because if someone gets angry at me or etc., I shouldn't let it come to my mind. Not because like, oh, I'm pure, I'm not gonna let it inside me, but being more compassionate towards the other. Thinking like maybe that person's having a bad day or like being there for that person. All of us are humans, all of us have bad days, and I'm sure even I might have been on the other side giving someone else a bad day. But I think just having that compassion towards people that you're surrounded with, that's very important. And then for me, another big aspect is spirituality. I do want to meditate even more, but I'm a yoga certified instructor as well. So I got that 2, 3 years ago, but I really want to go back to that practice because it grounds me. It helps me navigate life in a more sensible and calmer way rather than creating more hyperness.
Yeah, and chaos. Yeah, I get it. That's so true. I think yoga for me is really important as well. And I think like for everyone, we're so unique in our own ways and how our mind and body works. What works for you might not work for me and vice versa. Like I have friends who love Pilates at the moment and like I've tried honestly Pilates a few times and for some reason it just doesn't work for me. Like where I don't dislike it, but my body and I guess my body's stiffness, like it's just Pilates, like I just end up doing something wrong and then I end up like pinching a nerve or something happens where it just doesn't work for me. Whereas hot yoga, I've been practicing for several years and I think the heat just, I just love the heat so much, sweating in it. And like for some reason, like since I was very, not very young, but like I would say started like 8 years ago where I was just like, my friends and I would just sit in the sauna and we would just talk for hours and hours. And then we would go in and out of the sauna and we're like drenched and like talking and like we loved it. And then I think that's where I got that habit of like just sweating and being in the heat. Where for some people, it's like I cannot be in the heat at all. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So everyone is so different. And I think, like, as you mentioned, find something that grounds you and makes you more sensible and you can go with your day versus being super hyper reactive to
Yeah.
things. And everyone has one thing that they can do. So whatever works for you, whether it's being in nature or as you mentioned, like journaling and practicing meditation. It sounds simple, but the consistency and actually doing it, I don't think a lot of people do it consistently.
Do you think like all these activities that we're choosing, it's now, like now that we're in our late 20s or 30s, like are these the same activities that we used to do in our childhood? Like, do you see like there's a relationship to it or?
Yeah, yeah. I actually love that question. It's very true because I was just talking to someone the other day about this. Like anything I did when I was a kid, right? Like if I really think back to like the old Sunana when she was like 7 or 8 years old, I loved when my friends came over I would run around the entire house. Like I would be so excited. And then I would go downstairs to go play in the apartment complex that we lived in. And then I would play for hours and hours. And just anytime like I had the opportunity to journal, as you mentioned, I would sit there and journal. And then my friend, one of my best friends back in my childhood, like her and I would write to each other. And we had this journal that we made together, was a best friend's journal. And then I would write one page and I would date it and like I would put all these stickers and like write like I miss you and I love you and this and that, and then I would hand it to her in school. Then she would take it and then during her like first period or even we did it all the way till like middle school. I think we stopped in high school. She would write it in and she would give it back to me. And if I really think back, and as you this is such a beautiful question that you ask, I'm thinking like I'm exactly the same person. I'm sharing my feelings with one of my best friends. What am I doing right now on this podcast? I'm also sharing my feelings. So these parts of us never change. It's ingrained in us. And I think thinking back to our childhood and really figuring out, like, oh my goodness, this is what I enjoy doing. And
Yeah.
that is true happiness to me. So why am I sitting here not doing that anymore? I used to love like having like a water balloon fight. Like I haven't done that in forever, but why not like get friends together and go to a park and do it?
Exactly. That makes sense because now that I also think about it, it's the things that I loved in childhood are the things that I'm enjoying today too. Like for example, I used to love to dance. I used to love like to play any sport, and that's still inside me. Whenever I'm playing, like whenever we all play pickleball, it gives me that happiness because I'm so used to
Exactly.
it.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think just e- as life gets more challenging or full of responsibilities, like people get married and have kids, I think just going back to your inner child and really trying to even do what your childlike self loved doing, even if it's for 10 minutes, it's so fulfilling. So I think it's great to be reminded of that because we forget on our day to day how many of us do actually go back to childhood and think about like ourselves, like when we used to do all those things, right? So, yeah, lovely question. Last but not the least, what is one big advice you would give to your younger self?
I think going back as a child, I was very soft spoken, talking too less. I feel I was scared of people. I used to always be quiet. Like I would be that kid in the corner who's like only listening, not talking too much, even though like that part of me is still there. But that was something that I just went back to. So I think one of the biggest thing is not being scared of people or like not being too scared of what people say or think about you. That's something that I would tell my younger self. Just be you and have confidence in yourself. Um, I felt as a kid I was definitely scared of doing something wrong or like even trying because I would think that that would be something wrong that I would do. So I think throwing yourself out there, trying new things, trusting your inner self, trusting your gut feeling. That's something that I would tell my younger Simran.
Yeah, I love that. And it just reminded me of uh even for me, like sometimes when people don't necessarily agree with my ideas or my beliefs, even until this day, I get a little hurt. But then I think reminding yourself that everyone is so unique and everyone's opinions and their uh, upbringing and their belief system is not going to be similar to yours. So remembering that and seeing the other person with compassion and understanding that that's how you also learn and grow. Because if everyone just agreed to you all the time, that's not you're not learning and growing then. Yeah, it might feel good momentarily, but at the end of the day, like the most growth that happens is through people who have their own unique experiences and they can teach you from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very.
Awesome, Simran. Thank you so much. Loved having you. Beautiful conversation. It was so natural. And I think when it's a friend, it's even more organic. It's just very, I forgot we were recording.
I know there were points where I was like, "Oh, this is recorded."